is Dominique Washington. I'm a biology teacher at Hillside High School, and today you're going to be learning about pedigrees. So, pedigrees are just family trees that show inheritance of disorders over time through the generations. So the first thing we need to do is we need to know how to read a pedigree. I think that's very important. So, as you see, here's my wonderful hand-drawn pedigree. I know it's beautiful like Picasso. So, let's figure out what each one means first. So, all our symbols, circles mean that they're females or girls. And squares mean that they're males. Now, if they're shaded in, that means they're carriers. So a carrier means that they may have a disorder. They may carry a disorder or carry the genes for a disorder, but they don't have it. So carriers carry the gene for the disorder, but they are not affected by it. They just carry it along with them. And then if it's fully shaded in, that means that they're affected, they have it, they can't run away from it. So the way I like to remember it is that ladies, we're all round and sweet and soft. And fellas, you guys are a little rough around the edges, a little awkward. Okay? So, here's what I want to be careful about and note you. Be careful about and note you. Give you a note about. Sometimes they won't always be shaded in. So sometimes carriers on a pedigree won't always be shaded in. But if you look at the kids, you'll figure out whether they're a carrier or not. So sometimes it won't be shaded in, sometimes it will. Be careful. Okay? Next. A man and a woman connected by a bar in the middle are married. So, a man and a woman connected in the middle by a bar are married. Connected in the middle by a bar, married. Connected in the middle by a bar, married. And then, their branches coming down from them are their kids. So they had babies. So, the branches coming down are their kids. The branches coming down are their kids. The branches coming down are their kids. Okay? The last thing I want you to know is that each line is a generation, okay? So, in this pedigree, I have 3 generations. This is a generation, this is a generation, and this is a generation, okay? So, from what my understanding is, you got grandma and grandpa, you got your uncles and aunts, and then there are you and your cousins. Okay. Now, what's really important about pedigrees is not only how to read them, but how to determine a mode of inheritance. A mode of inheritance just means, how is this disease passed down? How is this trait passed down? How do my mom might not have it, but I have it. How does that happen? Well, we're going to figure it out. So, there are 2 ways that a mode of inheritance is determined, or 2 principles of a mode of inheritance. So first you have to figure out whether the disease or the trait is autosomal or sex-linked. What that means is, if it's autosomal, that means this disease or this trait is passed on through your autosomes, or your chromosome pairs 1 through 22. Okay? But if it's sex-linked, this disease or this trait is passed on only through your sex chromosomes, which are your X and your Y, which are your 23rd pair. Okay? Now you also have to figure out whether it's dominant or recessive. So dominant meaning that if one or both parents have it, or if neither parents have it, but you have it, we're going to figure that out. So if it's autosomal, that means it equally affects males and females. So, it affects males and females equally. So if it's autosomal, if it's found on chromosomes 1 through 22, it affects females and males equally. So just as many males that are shaded in on your pedigree, it's just as many females going to be shaded in too. But if it's sex-linked, more males are going to be shaded in. More males will be shaded in. Okay? Now, if it's dominant or recessive is our next one. So if it's dominant, that means that it never skips a generation. So at least one person in each generation is shaded in. At least one person in each generation is shaded in. So it never skips. It always shows up because it's dominant, baby. If it's dominant, it's always going to show up. Okay? But if it's recessive, it can skip generations. So it might not show up all the time. It's meek, it's small. It might not show up. It might. It depends. So recessive, it skips. All right? So what we are going to do is determine the mode of inheritance of this pedigree based on what we just learned. So, and we know all of our symbols. So, first of all, tell me, is this disorder autosomal or sex-linked? Does it affect more males? Meaning, does it affect males and females equally, or does it affect more males? So, let's count. How many females are affected? Right, 3. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? So, 3 females are affected. How many males are affected? Right, 3. 1, 2, 3. So is it autosomal or sex-linked? Correct, it's autosomal. But we're not done yet. We have to figure out whether it's dominant or recessive. So, did it never skip a generation, or did it skip a generation? Right, it never skipped a generation. At least one person, at least one person in each generation has it. So it must be dominant. So, this disease, or this trait, or whatever's being passed on, is an autosomal dominant trait, or disease. Thank you. You've watched another video with Miss Washington.